Welcome to No Shame in the Home Game, the podcast that cares how your home feels, not looks. I'm Lacey, your presence to be felt today. Sarah and I were just talking about something my husband said, that I am a presence that is felt. And that's basically my job today. So I'm going to toss it over to Sarah, who is our actual knowledgeable person. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Lacey. I'm just laughing so hard because, again, that yin and yang, that tortoise and hare. Yes, you are, when you're in the room, whereas I am very much if I could just melt into the wall and just observe, like I am very much a fly on the wall more. But I love that. I love that dichotomy between us, and it's fun.
It is fun. And I love that neither one of us tries to make the other one be the other way. I think that's beautiful.
Yes.
Now, today, we're talking about something that I'm going to have to get real good at soon. And that is managing children's memorabilia and stuff as they age, bring stuff home from school. We are adding another person to this household, and we did not set it up that way. So we've got some choices to make, and kids' memorabilia.
Side story to kick this all off. I have a friend, and she's the oldest of 5. As the oldest, she had this full scrapbook of her first year of her life. And then the second child had one, but it wasn't as thorough. And then the third one had a book that was purchased, but then nothing was in it. And then the fourth and the fifth didn't even get a book. That is a reflection of time, energy, and resources. You only have so much time in the day and energy. It's not that it's not important, but you adapt to each kid and what's going on in your life. It's also really important if you have a partner in this situation to, first of all, just reconcile expectations of memorabilia with your partner. I had a really heart-stopping moment where our son, I can't remember how old he was, at some point my husband was being all sentimental about that little tiny cap when they're newbies.
Yeah.
Like that little cap. I don't know. What is that cap called? It's just like their first
A knit beanie? I don't know.
Yeah, their first beanie hat. And he was talking about it and how important that was to him. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm pretty sure I don't have that anymore. That's what I felt at the moment. I did actually end up finding it. I did actually end up keeping it because it was important to him. So whatever we say and discuss on here, you still get that whole situation of discussing with your partner to see if they're on the same page as you. Which, I'm not a marriage counselor. What are Joe's memorabilia feelings?
Joe is very torn because he wants less stuff. But then when it comes down to actually not having the stuff, he goes, but should we get rid of this? He's a little bit more emotional about things than I think he likes to think he is. I will say one thing, and this was his idea, and I appreciate it. Kids' art, he's like, if there's a handprint, we keep it. If there's something super special about it, we keep it. Other than that, it can go, which has been a good thing. Now, the problem that I think we're going to run into in my household is Isaac is the most sentimental human I think I've ever met in my life. He got mad at Joe for throwing away their shampoo bottle because it was their shampoo bottle for several months. And then he was upset about it. So that's something we're working on. But yeah, he does not like letting anything go. So that actually is more of my bigger concern personally.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't even going into how the kid felt about it. I was strictly focusing on
I wouldn't
the adult.
either. I didn't know that he would be so attached to so many random objects. But who is he?
We are just so we can be clear with our audience, we are not talking about shampoo bottles as memorabilia. We are talking about items that are personal to the kid's journey through life. So that little beanie hat that comes home from the hospital, if you're going to keep hair and teeth.
That's not for me. I've already put a nix on that one.
Funny story about that. My sister was living at my parents' house for a stint because they were in between cities and jobs and houses. And then they bought a house and they moved out. And then one day I was staying at my parents' house and I opened this drawer on the nightstand. And as I opened it, a bunch of teeth came rattling with it. And I'm staring at this. And I was like, there's no way these are from like my childhood. So I called my sister and she's like, oh, yeah, 'cause some of the kids lost some teeth and I just threw them in that drawer. So random. But also, as your kids start doing preschool and kindergarten and doing sports, it's like the trophies and the participation badges and every single piece that they color and the Thanksgiving themed art. There starts to be a lot of decisions, and it comes down to what you have to work within. So, first of all, what's your storage space situation? Right? If you live in like a New York City apartment that's 600 square feet, that decision's kind of made for you. But again, if you have more space, talking with your partner and getting on that same page of what do we want to keep? What do we not want to keep? And then putting some kind of parameter or boundary. How much space do we want to dedicate? And what's the purpose of it? Are you going to go back and look at these items? Or is the desire that you're going to pass them on to your kid? Lacey, what do you think is the purpose of keeping it?
That's where I struggle a bit because, so for example, my mom has this big house full of our stuff. Mostly mine, because I just pieced out. And since I was the last one, I was like, yeah, I'll just leave stuff. It's fine. And she's been trying to go through all the stuff. And she sent me this giant pile of mine. She's, we need you to go through this. And I was like, just throw it away. I'm not going to do anything with it. I haven't thought about it in that long. Now, I do have a box that traveled with me from like apartment to apartment and college. That was like my personal stuff. So I guess in my mind, I took all that stuff with me. I am not a reminiscer of looking at things and going through things. So like Joe's family, they will open up like a photo album and be like, look at this. And it's very sweet. I will never do that. Now, we do have certain traditions where at a high school graduation, you get a video with all of your, like with pictures of you growing up. So I struggle with that because I'm realizing I'm not all that sentimental because I don't think I'll do anything with those things. And the only reason why I hold on to things is that I feel like I should, or that I will regret it someday, which I'm learning more and more. Living to not regret something is not a great excuse because then you're starting from a place of negativity. So I think I might be to an extreme of like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do with it. I don't know if I would look at it.
And we are in such a different position than our parents were. And in a moment, I would love to know what Carolyn did as far as keeping memorabilia for all children in your household. But we're in a unique position where there is so much digital footprint now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, right? If you didn't keep that tangible product, there was no alternative. But now, even if you don't keep everything, it's like somebody's going to have pictures of that event. Somebody's going to have a copy of that. What did Carolyn do growing up with all of your artwork and papers and school photos and all that?
I don't remember artwork. Unless there was some in fifth grade. It was fifth or sixth grade. I did a chalk pastel painting or art piece of a tiger, and it got put up in the house because it was so good. I remember that. It was mine. It wasn't a giant point of pride of my life or anything. But I do know she had a box that she collected stuff over like the course of our school years. Because I remember when I graduated, she had a lot of those things. Now, so when it comes to sports, when I say we, I don't mean me and the rest of my family are big sports people and did a lot of sports. And when my parents built their house, they, in the basement, specifically put a Hall of Fame type display where we put all of those trophies, and those are still there to this day. And it is funny because it's a very clear view of who was most athletically gifted. Let's just say Lacey has 3 cubes, whereas other people have 9. And it's fine. I'm okay with it. At a certain point, we started putting my academic achievements in there. And so that was a place where things could go.
And that actually brings up a great first point about memorabilia is if you're going to take the effort and space to keep an item, It's about respecting the item. So your parents built this case to have all the trophies in, right? Versus if you have a box in the basement that they're all thrown in, like really just evaluate with yourself kind of what's the point of them being in a box in the basement by the water heater, right?
Yeah.
Or the kids' art that you can frame and put on the wall and you're enjoying it. I helped a client who she had a bunch of memorabilia from her life in a closet and it was getting not destroyed, but ruined because stuff was stacked on top of it. It was pushed all the way in the back. You couldn't really see it. We had a discussion about like, how important are these items to you? And so we really came up with a way for them to be A, protected and B, enjoyed. So again, thinking about, are you keeping it for keeping its sake? Are you keeping it to be enjoyed? So that's another good talking point with your partner or with yourself. The one that I always come to, and I think this is where you and I are very similar is, and this is going to get a little existential, the past, the present, and the future, right? If we hold on to too much of the past, we're not going to have any room for the future to grow into the people your kids are becoming. Right. And then if you're so focused on the future, if you get rid of everything, then you're not tethered to the past and you may even not be enjoying this moment because you're trying to throw it away so fast. So for me, I always try to think about keeping that balance, like having some memories, but not all of them. And that comes honestly a knee-jerk reaction from my mom who literally kept the school menu. We found pamphlets to school plays that we weren't even in. The amount of banker boxes of pieces of everything. And again, it was so much that it was almost preventing life from happening. The weight of it was so much to manage. Although, side note, I did see an art project of mine from first grade, which I don't know why I didn't go to a therapist much earlier in my life. I am not joking you when I tell you it was a shamrock that had a face and there was blood dripping.
Naturally.
And it was a murderish shamrock. It was supposed to be St. Patrick's Day themed, but it was like this little poem in my first grade handwriting about this villainous murderous shamrock. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, Mom, how is this not concerning to anyone?
I love that the shamrock was villainous. Like you didn't even need a leprechaun. No, the actual shamrock itself.
Don't worry, he had a top hat, but he also had blood dripping, and I believe he was holding a knife. It was creepy beyond creepy. But so finding that balance point, right, of how much do we want to hang on to? How much is that adding to our present day? I think that's what it is. How much is hanging on to the past enriching our current moment?
That's so interesting because I'm a very future-oriented person. So I do think it's interesting to think about that because I do see that I am like, what will future me want? You know what I mean? What will we need in the future? I don't necessarily feel emotionally attached to it.
Very exciting news. You can now sponsor Joy. You can put more joy out into the world. Go to joyfulsupportmovement.com, scroll down to the bottom, and hit the support button. There, you can sponsor Joy financially, and added bonus, you can put a joy ripple out into the world by either giving a shout out for yourself, thank yourself for all the hard work you did today with laundry, give a shout out to a neighbor who picked up a package so it didn't get wet. You get to put that joy ripple out there. And we will do the shout out on the podcast, and you will be supporting joy in the world. Thank you so much for your support. There really is like so many different lenses to look at it through, right? The practicality of it, the emotional of it. I mentioned my mom, you talked about your parents, the history, what was shown for us. There's so many different ways to look at it. But going back to the practical steps for anyone listening who's, okay, just tell me what to do. There's a couple of different methods. The method I find the easiest. So you can either do it in the moment or delayed. And I like to do delayed. So for instance, son goes into first grade. All first grade, I throw all of the artwork into a drawer. And then once, maybe mid-year or wait till the end of the year, I just go through everything in the drawer. And you're like, oh, I have 20 drawings of the exact same tree. Oh, okay. I have 20 examples of what does handwriting look like in the first grade. Then you can cherry pick of the whole drawer. Okay, what are 3 pieces to reflect first grade, right? So that way you're getting a cross section.
And you're giving yourself that gift of future you, right? You are future you. Maybe you're not 10 years down the road, but you are. So that's why I like the idea of it being in the future, make the choices, and then go on. I like this a lot, Sarah.
The only thing is to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really easy to just put it all in a drawer and then never go through the drawer and start another drawer.
Very true.
So know thyself. If that's honestly not an option for yourself, then be honest and go through that stuff daily.
Yeah.
And if a new piece of artwork comes in, decide, do I want to keep the one on the fridge and replace it with this? Like, which one's going to go in the recycling? Do it daily if you don't think that you're going to take the time to do like a big lift. I know a lot of people really enjoy the companies where you can send off a whole box and then they scan it and create like a little book for you. So that's definitely another option. With Isaac, where he actually wants to hold on to things, and I mentioned this in the episode with Ashley, I think it's helpful to give kids a certain size box we talked about, like a treasure chest. And if that shampoo bottle means a lot to him, like he can put it in his treasure chest. And then he gets to learn as that treasure chest gets full, like this new item he wants to put in. It's okay, we'll go through the treasure chest. Is there something in here that doesn't have an emotional tether anymore? I wouldn't use those words with a 5-year-old.
But I use a lot of, he knows what alliteration is. We've had a lot of conversations about alliteration. So he might. I don't know. He's very smart.
Yeah. But I am definitely of the mind of not to push kids either way.
Yeah.
Don't push them to hold on to things and don't push them to get rid of things before they're ready, because I think that has a whiplash effect.
Well, I like too that you are making them part of the process. I like that a lot.
Make them part of the process. And like we discussed with Ashley, it's very much about teaching them that one day they will be doing all these choices for themselves. And going back to the practical points that you can take away from this, it's defining a space that makes sense for your household. Is it a drawer? Is it a plastic tote? Is it a banker's box? Is it a treasure chest? I have this memorabilia box from high school. I guess it was really once I became like more of my own agency, so like middle school through high school. And it's about the size of a banker's box, but it's decorative. And I would put things in there. And just like I said, as it got full, I would dump the whole thing out. Like in a lot of it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember this. And some stuff I'd pick up and I'd be like, I don't know this. I don't remember. And then I could throw that away, which I'm actually due to do that because I took some items recently back from my parents' home and I am my safe boundary is ballooned out. I need to reduce it. So I will actually be doing this myself very soon. And then like I've said many times before, it's that low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I'm actually really surprised at your lack of can't say the word.
Sentimentalism.
Yes. Is there anything you've hung on to from your wedding day or from when the kids?
Yes. You can tell this is how sentimental I am. I have a box that I put wedding crap on because it was like leftovers from stuff at Keepsakes. That was in our basement at our old house that got moved here. I think I'm a little bit more strategic. So like our wedding favor, and this isn't my idea, all of my family really did this, was a Christmas ornament. So every year when we put our Christmas tree up, we hang the Christmas ornament from our wedding. You'll like this, Sarah. It's a test tube. So Joe, right? Test tube, science. And then a sprig of purple lavender on the inside. So that's me.
Oh, that's really thoughtful.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so got like 30 of those because you always make way too many. So I do have that stuff. Now I will say there are some things from my kids. So their bracelets and my bracelets from the hospital. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I have a box that I just threw them in.
Okay. Yes, each kid has a box?
No.
Or they're all thrown in a box together?
In a box together. A bunch of sonograms too, which I need to go through because I feel guilty throwing them away. But because I had gestational diabetes, I got sonograms like every week at a certain point because they're afraid the baby's going to get too giant. That's a whole other conversation. So I do have those. There are a few pieces of clothing of theirs. I can think of it right now. A onesie that my dear friend Katie got for Isaac. It's when she lived in New York. So it says Brooklyn and it's got like headphones on it. And it just was so cute. But it also was just such a way for someone who was far away to feel close to us. And so that this next baby will wear because I know we have it. So I think something like that I will definitely keep. Obviously, handprints and footprints because Joe told me I had to.
I will say, I think the thing I'm most sentimental about was books because we read books every night.
We have yet to go through our books. I have a feeling there will be some sentimentality with that one, 100%.
That one, we had so many books that I was not equally attached to all of them. And over the years, I've been able to cut down and cut down. But what I do love is I've incorporated the key 5 or 10 that we have into our bookshelf. So I have a mix of different age levels. And what's fun is when a little brother or sister comes over of a friend or like my niece was in town, it was actually nice to have those books to pull off the shelf and share.
Yeah.
Those I have incorporated and I love seeing them.
I will say that is something that Joe's mom got him a copy of a book that he really loved as a child as a gift because it got like out of print and we have it now. And he really loved that. Now, we don't have the actual copies, but my mom did buy a copy for us of some of the books that we read a lot as kids, like Spooky Old Tree. That was a big one with the Bernstein Bears. It's Bernstein, not Berenstein, even though I could go down a...
Wait, I have to. One time on Jeopardy, I was so mad. Somebody was awarded points, and then they came back after the commercial break and took away points because they said that name. They said they said the name wrong. And I was like, yeah, but you know what they meant. Like,
have you heard of the Mandela effect and all that stuff? I could go into a big old... I recently had one of those. I swear Dick Cheney died. I swear I remember think pieces about it. I remember people... And when it came out, he recently endorsed Kamala Harris. I'm like, wait, is this a joke? Because he died a couple years ago. So it's fine. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Opposite problem. The answer to the Jeopardy clue last night, I knew the answer was Madeleine Albright, but part of the clue, because I always put 2 pieces of information, one piece was, and she passed away in 2022. And I was like, it can't be Madeleine Albright. She didn't die. It was Madeleine Albright. And apparently she did pass away.
And Dick Cheney's still alive. Who knew? I had to Google it. I was like, Joe.
I love how this podcast, you just never know when a left turn's coming up. Love it. So back to Dick Cheney.
Wait, how did we get to Dick Cheney? Dancing Bears, Mandela Effect, important books. So yeah, which it's funny because I don't remember reading the books, but I know we did because the books stayed around. So I think it's almost like I don't want to say implanted memories. That's not what I meant. But I have this little seed of remembering something. I do agree that would be a good thing for us. I will say also for my baby shower with Isaac, we did a storybook theme and everybody, instead of doing cards, we asked them to bring a book and to write, to baby Tomlinson from this person. And that has been very fun for us years later now to be like, oh, Grace bought you this book, buddy. You remember Grace? Kind of thing. And I'm going to cry. So give me a second. There's one that my grandma did. And it was just like, dear baby Tomlinson, be gentle with your mom and dad. They don't know this stuff yet, but you're so loved. Having that now, super special. Yeah, I will say another thing and this is all Carolyn, that she did is she made my grandma write down all of her recipes. And we all got a recipe book in her handwritten stuff. And so that was another really special way. So I think as I'm saying this out loud, what it comes down to is what are the things that you value in your day-to-day life? And how can you honor that with your memorabilia? So for us, the books and the messages from the people we love. Cooking was always something that my grandma did to take care of all of us. And that was special to her. So having her recipes feels so good now that we don't have her. And so I think that's a big lesson for me of instead of worrying about, will I miss this later on, think, is this something I want to remember?
And that's a great point. I would say For me, like I mentioned, having the books on the bookshelf,
Yeah.
to me, if I had to pick one thing, that would be it. And it's still functional to me. And I enjoy aesthetically seeing the art on the cover. And I actually have a book from my own childhood that's incorporated in there. There's a little bit of value reflection, I think,
Yeah.
that can be done with this process with you and your partner of where can it be incorporated. Like if you're really into art, frame that artwork, invest in some really nice matting and glass frames and get that up on the wall. Really think about how that wants to show up in your life. If you do, going back to practical steps, if you do want to keep a cross section of paperwork, artwork, I learned this from a client of mine. They're hanging file folder boxes, but they're decorative. Have you seen these? They're
No.
almost fabric and it's not big like a banker's box. They're more slim. But yeah, you put hanging files in them. I have two, again, learned this from my client. So one is going to be K through 6 and one will be 7 through 12 or whatever. You can break it up however you want. And then there's a hanging file for each year. So then, like I said, throw everything in the drawer, go through it, and then pick some and just put it in that one. So that way, you know, everything is going to end up in just these two boxes or it's just a defined space.
I'm thinking about home management for everyone. And one of the principles that we talk about is that if you can do a little planning ahead of time, it saves you a lot of headache later on. And as you were talking about that, I'm like, oh, yeah, you put the structure in place so that you didn't have to think about it later on.
And I did have to do a little bit of catch up because I learned that because I was just throwing everything in a plastic tub, which was fine. But when I saw these cloth file folders, I was like, oh, those are aesthetically pleasing to me. I want these. Again, it's what are you going to keep and how are you going to value it? Like, I then realized, oh, I want to put this inside of a container that makes me happy. Yeah, do it however works for you. That's just a suggestion of a way to keep that stuff. And then, yeah, when you're getting older and you ask your kids, do you want to take this with you? And they say, no, thanks. You only have a limited amount to throw away.
We are to the end of our time, Sarah, but I want us to do quick gratitude.
Yes.
Quick hits of gratitude. So I'm going to say I am feeling grateful for antidepressants and psychiatrists and being able to work with them to get what I need. It's amazing.
Big shout out to mental health care.
Absolutely.
And yes, all of those things. My shout out is to Macy's, not a sponsor, but I wouldn't mind if they were. Excellent customer service.
Get it, Macy's.
They reminded me that I had a warranty on my bed. I had an inspector come out who, by the way, complimented me on how clean my mattress was, which I got to tell you, my husband understood how happy that made me. This is all this guy does is look at mattresses. And I was like,
he knows. He knows.
He knows. And he knew right away that the mattress had failed. He could see it. And customer service was amazing. We picked out a new mattress. It's coming next week. It couldn't have been easier. So shout out to Macy's and seamless customer service. Very appreciated. It made my day wonderful.
That's a great way to end.
I do want to do a final plug. If anyone has questions about kids memorabilia, because there's a lot of different scenarios, please go to the Q&A form on No Shame in the Home Game and let us know your questions and let's problem solve because we just scratched the surface, really.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Lacey.